Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I am going to make the audiobook of chapter 4 from First Flight Class 10th NCERT English book. The name of the chapter is From the Diary of Annie Frank. Chapter by Annie Frank. Before you read, Anneliese Mary Annie Frank, 12th June 1929 to February March 1945, was a German-born Jewish girl who wrote while in hiding with her family and four friends in Amsterdam during the German occupation of the Netherlands in World War II. Her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. As persecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms of her father's Otto Frank's office building. After 2 years in hiding, the group was betrayed and transported to the concentration camp system where Annie died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen within days of her sister Margot Frank. Her father, Otto, the only survivor of the group, returned to Amsterdam after the war was ended to find the diary had been saved. Conceived it was a unique record, he took action to have it published in English under the name of Diary of a Young Girl. The diary was given to Annie Frank for her 13th birthday and chronicles the events of her life from 12th June 1942 until its final entry of 1st August 1944. It was eventually translated from its original Dutch into many languages and became one of the world's most widely read books. There have been also several There have also been several films, televisions, and theatrical productions, and even an opera based on the diary. Described as work of mature and insightful mind, the diary provides an intimate examination of daily life under Nazi occupation. Annie Frank had become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Not because I have never written anything before, but also because it seemed to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff backed notebook grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Now, back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let me put it more clearly. Since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl like me is completely alone in the world, and I'm not, I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. This is why I have started the diary to enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination. I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary and the way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I am going to call it call this friend Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I would better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. My father, the most adorable father I have ever seen, didn't marry my mother unless he was 36 and she was 25. My mother, Margot, was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12th June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father immigrated to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Holland Frank, went My mother, Edith Holland Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margot and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margot went to Holland in December, and I followed in February when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margot. I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6. At that time, I started in my in the first form. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Cuprus, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. In summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other, and Grandma candle was lit along with the rest. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and solemn dedication of my diary. Dear Kitty, our entire class is quacking in its boots. The reason, of course, is forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. Half the class is making bets. Gian and I laughed ourselves silly at two boys behind us, Cian and Jacques, who have staked their entire holiday savings on their bet. From morning to night, it's you are going to pass. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Even G's pleading glances and my angry outburst can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We will make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Anyways, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mrs. Kissing, the old fogey, the old fogey who teaches math, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me homework. He assigned me extra homework and essay on the subject a chatterbox. A chatterbox, what can you write about that? I would worry about that later. I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. That evening, after I had finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a student's trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and there is not much you can do about inherited traits. Mr. Casing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. This time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Casey had nothing to complain about for two whole lessons. However, during the third lesson, he finally had enough. Annie Frank, as a punishment of for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack Quack Quack," said Mr. Chatterbox. Said Mistress Chatterbox. The class roared. I had to laugh too, though I would nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. It was time to come up with something else, something original. My friend Sani, who is good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from the beginning to end in verse, and I jumped for joy. Mr. Casing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, and I would make sure the joke was on him. I finalized and finished my poem, and it was beautiful experience. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with three baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they quacked too much. Luckily, Mr. Casing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments and to several other classes as well. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, Mr. Casings always making jokes these days. Yours, Annie. Extracted from the diary of a young girl with slight adaptation.